Hi, I'm Hayley Victoria and welcome back to my crime and policing channel. In today's session we're going to be looking at eyewitness testimony, and that links in with the policing units that my students are doing right now, and it might help some of you guys as well out there. So what I can tell you about eyewitness testimony, it's not normally used by itself, so it will be used with other evidence while they're building that case up, and that's because eyewitness testimony can vary on many things. And sometimes what you think you might see, you don't. And a lot of things can affect that. So that includes things like stress and trauma. It could include like weapon focus. Studies have shown that if something happens in front of you and there's a weapon or something, your instincts make you hone in on the danger. You're like, you're looking at the weapon. And you might not take in everything else that's going around. So you might not notice the clothing that someone is wearing. Also, your reconstructive memory might fill in the gaps for you, and that's something we do as human beings naturally. We try and make things make sense in our heads. Also, things that can impact your eyewitness testimonies is if you speak to somebody else. We could all be, say, I don't know, there's 4 or 5 of us watching this right now, we could all be stood on the same street or in the same nightclub, something happens, we'll all see slightly different things. That varies on whereabouts we're standing, our visibility, anything that's obstructing our vision. All those types of things can impact our eyewitness testimony. There's stuff like bias as well, unconscious bias. Maybe someone who looks a bit like you'll look at more favourably than somebody else who doesn't look like you. And that's something unconscious. Maybe it's a conscious bias. Maybe you don't like girls, or you don't like men, or you don't like a certain type of person. I don't know, you don't like gingers. And because of that, when you are looking at a scene, you automatically see the negative on the person that you are biased against. So that kind of thing can impact our eyewitness testimony. So they're not always foolproof, and there are certain things we use to make them accurate. And these tips and tricks that the police have been using for many, many years are still used today. Getting comfy for this one. So the things that they use are the 10-point person description. So when you pass in a description of somebody, I know you have the Nash factors, we've gone through those before, but when you get in a statement from somebody, a witness statement, you want to get a 10-point person description. Now your 10-point person description is very old. Some of the terminology I don't agree with, but hey, I didn't write it. I'm just here to tell you what it is. And then the first one, number 1, is your colour. I prefer to say, ethnicity. And bearing in mind, this is all presumed. This is what the witness has seen. Your gender, or it says sex in the original one, but really, and that's presumed as well. Age, so you've got ethnicity, gender, age. Height, and you've got to use kind of like an estimate, so about 6'2". Build, so are they stocky, are they slim? Hairstyle and colour, so I've got red hair in plaits tied up at the back. Maybe you've got, I don't know, a pink Mohican, something like that. Who knows, right? You do you, people. Complexion. Have you got rosy cheeks? Have you got a lot of makeup on? Have you ruddied? So ruddy is when people are like quite red. You've got tons of freckles, something like that. Distinguishing features. So I'm covered in tattoos. Could it be tattoos, scars? Harry Potter's got a lightning bolt, right? Have you got a Harry Potter scar? Because that's distinguishing feature, Mr. Potter. And glasses and stuff can be included in it too. So the next one is your clothing, what you're wearing. And you go from top to bottom when you're describing somebody. So can you tell me what she was wearing? Yeah, she's got like a black woolen jumper thing on, okay? And then the last one is what they're carrying. So number 10 is are they carrying anything? Right now I'm not carrying anything. I don't think I've got anything like interesting. I've got a boxing glove. Maybe I'm carrying a boxing glove with me. Who knows? And what they're carrying. All this stuff helps build that picture. We had a bit of a bonus 11 when I was in police training, and that's when we had accent. As you can probably tell, I am from the north of England. I've got a strong Yorkshire accent. And if I was in somewhere like Birmingham or Glasgow or London, my accent is going to stick out like a sore thumb. And that, I know it's a distinguishing feature, but we just called it a bonus accent because, if somebody from Glasgow came into Rotherham, that they're going to stand out compared to the other accents there. And I'm sure that makes sense. So let's go through this again. We've got ethnicity, gender, age, height, build, hairstyle and colour, complexion, distinguishing features, remember Harry Potter, clothing, top to bottom, and are they carrying anything? That's your 10-point person description. Now, you use that when you're writing witness statements and victim statements, because that's going to help us build a bigger picture, like I said. With all those details, it helps to, narrow down our search. It might be that when you're talking to a police officer, you're describing these things, they might be like, I know a kid with a lightning bolt scar and a black cape carrying a wand. Do you know what I mean? Let's describe Harry for this. So, oh yeah, I think he's white, male, about 17. I know he looks about 5'8", kind of skinny, hairstyle's like messy and brown. He's quite pale looking, like he don't eat enough food. He's got a lightning bolt tattoo on his head, not tattoo, scar. He's got round NHS glasses. He's wearing like a black hooded cape thing, like, the woman from the Scottish Widow advert, or he's out for Halloween, I don't know. Or maybe he's just a bit of a goth, who knows, no judgment. And he's carrying a wand. I'm describing Harry Potter, right? And you can try it with yourself. So try describing your friends and family with a 10-point person description. Be kind. What I used to do in class was get people to describe each other. I soon stopped doing that when people were putting little and fat. I'm like, you can't put that, guys, come on. And that was just to have little jabs at each other. But yeah, it's quite fun. Try describing celebrities. See if you can figure out who people are describing. That's your 10-point person description. Now, the next thing I'm going to look at is something called advocate. And I'm not talking about advocaat, that gross stuff that you drink at Christmas. But it's not nice at any time of the year. Why are you going to wheel it out at Christmas, guys? Ugh. It's like eggs, raw egg and custard. It's like custard, but with booze in. It's gross. It's not for me, obviously, as you can tell. So, advocate comes from a bit of it's a stated case. It comes from R-V-Turnbull. Now, advocate is a mnemonic, and it's spelled like ADVOKATE. I'm going to pop them up on my screen with the magic of video technology. Advocate. Now, as I said, that comes from something called R-V-Turnbull. So that's talking about, the cause, Regina versus Turnbull. Turnbull being the surname of the defendant and the suspect in the case I'm going to talk about. And that's where advocate came into place. Now then, I love a bit of history, me. You know that. I love a bit of history. And this comes from 1976. This is before I was even born, like a long time before I was born this time. I can actually feel young for once. Okay, yeah, that feeling has passed, and then I remember how old I was. So 1976 is where it comes from, R-V-Turnbull. So Turnbull and his associate, Carmelo, were convicted of conspiracy to burgle after a retrial. The retrial was based on the defendant saying that the evidence wasn't strong enough, the eyewitness testimony evidence from the police officer who was involved wasn't strong enough. But it was held up because of advocate. And that's where it came from. So what did the police officer actually see? Well, there'd been a string of thefts from safes. You put safes in banks, at night safes, a string of thefts from there. What had been happening is that people put in bags. They were putting out of order signs on these safes and asking customers to put the takings through letterboxes. They were then capturing all the takings in these little bags, finding them, taking them, and running off. And it worked well for a while until a bank employee saw somebody doing something suspicious. And that person doing something suspicious was Turnbull. So the bank employee told the police, and they started keeping an eye out. They started their observations. And the man that was trying to remove the bag was chased by the police, which was Turnbull. But then they lost him. There you go. But the detective said, that man there is Turnbull. So at the time, the DC that was seen you, was 10 yards away. His visibility was good. It was a well-lit street. And he saw Turnbull's face. He saw his face, full face. He got away, like I said, he did one, got away, but his description was circulated. Let's go back to our descriptions, maybe the 10-point description. A mile away, a van stopped, and as it stopped, Turnbull crept out of some bushes, got into the van, and Camilla was driving it. Thankfully, they were stopped by the police and they were both arrested. Ha ha ha. And they recognised Turnbull from the description that was passed through the airwaves, through the radio, from what the detective at the time had given them. Now then, I keep going on about advocate. I'm not making much sense, but I hope the story does. So we've got Turnbull and his friend Camillo, right? They got this heist where they were taping these bags to the letterboxes of banks, putting signs in the safe deposit box saying out of order, postage stuff for the letterbox. They were then collecting the bags and running away. One night, bank employee sees Turnbull. What's he doing? Phones the police. The police have a look and go, they see him trying to get the bag. They chasing him down. The DC gets a good old look at him. Then he disappears. The DC's like, I have to lay off the pastries. But, however, a mile away, a van stops and Turnbull tries to get into it. Because of the description that was passed, the police catch him and the driver, who was Camillo, Turnbull's buddy in partner in crime. Literally partner in crime this time. And in court, they went on what the detective said he saw, which was appealed, but the appeal, the conviction was held. And that's because of the things the detective said when they were in court. And that's what brought us advocate. So A is the amount of time that you are watching somebody. So let's say he was watching Turnbull for a good 4 minutes, trying to shift you about and try and get that bag out, okay? D is the distance. So it was only about 10 yards away from Turnbull. That's not very far in old money. V is a visibility. So it was a well-lit street, he could see. You know, he wasn't visually impaired, he could see, well-lit street, no fog, no clouds, no like, I don't know, during like bonfire night when there's just smoke and stuff everywhere. It was all good. There were no obstructions to his view, so always got obstructions. So I always think about when you're like, you're at Clower at airport and there's people walking by in front of you, there are obstructions. There was none of that, okay? K is known or seen before. So if they'd, arrested Turnbull before, they go, I know who that was. That is bloody Turnbull. I've locked him up 4 times already. Is a wrong one, right? So we've got advoc. A is any reason to remember. So I remember them because they've got a really strong Yorkshire accent and we're in the middle of Cornwall. It stuck out like a sore thumb, right? So any reason to remember. T is a time lapse since you saw the event. Because as time goes on, your memory starts to deteriorate. So a time lapse between when you saw the event and you wrote your statement. It was only half an hour ago. Got you. If it's 2 years ago, you're going to have forgot stuff and your reconstructive memory is going to start to put those things in for you to make sense to you. And then E is any errors or discrepancies, and that comes in a bit later on. And that's where advocate comes from. Now, the good thing about advocate is that they still use it today. I was interviewed about, a few years ago as a witness, not suspect. And I was in there for a long, long time. And I noticed the detective had got advocate in his pack. And this is a seasoned detective. I was like, you still using that? And he's like, yeah, I use it all the time. So it's relevant. Yes, it's from 1976, before even I was born, but it's still relevant and it's still used. And when you're writing your statements, you're getting eyewitness testimonies, using your 10-point person description, an advocate is going to help you get the grounds, that evidence fresh and early on to make sure that you're getting justice for those victims. I hope that helps. We will do more about eyewitnesses and really delve into the things about reconstructive memory, but not this time. So I hope that helps. See you all soon and don't commit any crimes. Bye.